What's going on, everyone? I'm back to saying my favorite four words at the start of every episode. You will notice that there are only three of us here this week. Max is studying for a huge test, so we didn't want to bug him with our usual shenanigans and antics and whatever Declan has planned. So, we told you at the end of last week's episode, we are talking about Avatar, The Way of Water, the long-awaited, super bloated sequel to a no one wanted this super bloated original film.
Man,
So now you already kind of know my thoughts about it, but to our reduced panel tonight, what do you guys think?
I gotta start this off by saying every single one of my expectations for an Avatar film have been just wildly off. I was one of the four people who never actually properly sat down to watch the first Avatar movie
I'm one
until
of those people as well.
that's yeah. So it's like I like hadn't seen the first one for a while. So I finally sat down to watch it only like a couple weeks ago, and I genuinely liked it. I was on board with it. It's like, I mean, not perfect, but I think it succeeded at, like, creating a new world and all that. I thought Avatar 1 was a good film. So I'm like, okay, Avatar 2, all the pro Avatar people online, I guess they're correct. So I guess Avatar 2 must be as good as people say it is. And so I come in and see it. I'm kind of like, I felt a little bit disappointed by it. It's not bad. I would still call it a good movie, but it's only okay rather than great, unfortunately, for me at least. Considering it took freaking 12 plus years to make, I was hoping for a bit more than what I actually got from Avatar: The Way of Water. That's me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's inevitably going to be a lot of people's criticism just because of how long it took.
Mhm.
But as a straight movie, I think it's a pretty good one. I mean, it's not a deep movie in terms of, like, Banshees of Inisherin or something, but it more than stands up to any of, like, Marvel movies. Certainly blows DC movies out of the water. But I mean, it's a blockbuster. It's an old school blockbuster
Mhm.
that they haven't been done in a while. I
All
mean,
right,
you
if you
have
want to talk old school style blockbuster, I'm looking for a Top Gun Maverick. I'm not looking for an Avatar: The Way of Water. Talk
yeah,
about a
but
long-awaited sequel.
yeah, but Top Gun Maverick is a cheap one where, yes, it's full of a lot of great stuff. It's a good film, but no, I'm talking about a blockbuster like what James Cameron did all of his life. An original idea, not a sequel. This is maybe a sequel, but the original film was made 10 years ago, not 40 years ago.
Mhm.
And I think there's something to be said that, he's expanding the world, but this is an old, like, franchise. It's not tied into comics. It's not a sequel. It's not a prequel. It is an original concept that has a lot of world building in it. And I think
Mhm.
his films, both of them, do a incredible job world building, like way better than plenty of films do these days.
That is true. I,
I,
I that I feel like was the special spark for the first film that I feel like it
Yeah.
made it, like, it made it better for me.
I don't think either of the stories are, like, crazy revolutionary, but they're emotional and they are exactly what you need when your goal is to build a world, to build this fantastical world for audiences to come and enjoy
Mhm.
rather than something convoluted. I think Hollywood these days, they get a little too convoluted with things. They think, more is more, and sometimes this is better. This lets the world breathe. It lets things happen. You actually get to meet every one of the characters. They're not put in there as a plot device. Um, it's a much more.
I don't know about that. I would say Jake and Neytiri's oldest son is a plot device in this film.
I don't think he's a plot
He
device at
he
all.
is the
He's like the
perfect
heart of the
son.
film.
He's the perfect son. He is the foil to Loat. He is the
Well,
one who, spoiler alert, dies at the end. Obviously, you knew that
No,
where
no,
that
no.
was going when you saw the
All right,
relationship.
all right. I will make a very firm repudiation of that, and that he
Please.
cannot be a plot device if he's a well-built character. A
He's
plot
not a
device.
well-built character.
I think he's a pretty well-built character. He is the firstborn. We see it at the beginning that this is sort of the birth of Sam's life as a forest person. And
I think you mean Jake. Watch the movie.
huh?
You said Sam. Sam Worthington, pal. Jake Sully.
Yeah,
Watch
yeah.
the
Sam,
movie.
Sam Worthington's Jake Sully, Sully Sullivan.
Wait, is that the Monsters Inc.
Victor
crossover?
Goddamn Sullivan, that's
All right, but no, I do think that is something to be said. Like my criticism of plot device characters is, I don't know, plenty of characters in Babylon were plot device characters who literally existed just to make something happen or just to put a face in there. There's not a character in this that exists as a plot device. Maybe you could say that they're derivative, but that's a different criticism. I mean, there's no character in here that exists just to function as a plot device. Like, yes, he is the perfect son, and you could say that.
All right.
But
You want an example of a character in this movie that's used as a plot device? Spider.
What? No, that's a bad one. He's not a plot device
All
at
right.
all.
Here's another one. Kiri.
None of these are plot devices.
what I would say.
They exist. Like you could have this movie with. You could have this movie with Loat as the only child of Jake and Neytiri.
No, I don't think you can.
All those other characters, Kiri, the firstborn son whose name escapes me right now, Spider, they exist to move certain elements of the story along.
All right, that is a very derivative. That's a very derivative definition of it. Yes, every character moves the plot along. That's the definition of a movie. But
what I would
devices, they have a deep character. I mean, they're well-built characters. They don't exist just to say a few lines to tell someone where to go. Everyone has that. Even the chief, his wife, every single person in this film.
What I would say, my
characters more well-built than most in Marvel. I will tell you that.
My criticism of the script. My criticism of the script is I felt that there ultimately was too many. I hate to say it, like, because I do think most of them are well done, but there were I felt like, obviously this is a large movie, but there were just so many characters, and eventually felt like by the end certain characters were getting the short stick. Like I feel like especially Neytiri like really got pushed to the sidelines towards the second half of the movie.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think some of the characters did not get their full conclusion, but I will say
Neytiri are barely in the second act.
A little bit, and it's
like they're there at the beginning. They're there until they get to join the water tribe, and then it really just hones in on the kids for the second act and what Spider is doing with Quaritch. And I know we have more to talk about with plot devices and which characters aren't, but Quaritch, why the fuck do you bring him back?
That was like
he died a satisfying villain death in the first film.
I feel like Quaritch was a really good
like. You mean an Avatar?
I know the idea they were going with. Like at least the first third seemed to really be playing with the idea of like identity, kind of. You know, Spider's a human, but he spends all his time with the Na'vi. Like, you know, the kids are like it seemed to want to be doing something with identity and like who a person is Quaritch really Quaritch, or is he just a clone? Clone, you know, Avatar. It's like they're going for it. I felt like it didn't. I wish it had tied in more with like the conclusion, kind of, because I feel like it was a good. I need to
put this in here, which is like I mean, the first film ended better because I don't think James Cameron really knew it was going to happen. But when he started making these sequels, I'm pretty sure like he's written them like as a whole, like, you know, it's like a trilogy. So
Except
I mean,
there
some
are
of these,
7 of them.
okay, as a franchise or whatever.
Mm.
But I think it, I mean, that would be my criticism of like many trilogies, is they don't plan that far ahead and they have all these conclusions. So I would rather like them leave a lot of these characters more open-ended, because then you could do things later. And I'm sure he has plenty of things planned.
In
With
that
Quaritch,
case, why don't you have like Jake Sully save Quaritch's life at the end of the first film?
because I don't think, well,
You have Quaritch die.
first of all, I just told you why. If you were listening.
I was.
Really. So I told everyone on the podcast, at least, that James Cameron did not know whether he was going to get a sequel from this. But I think it's appropriate to bring Quaritch back because, like Declan said, that it is a lot about identity. I mean, I almost said Sam again. Oh fuck, what's his name?
Jake Sully.
Watch the freaking movie.
Sorry, just
Ben didn't see it. No, I'm kidding.
all I could
All
think
right.
of was
I also talk a lot about Sam Worthington in my life, so I understand.
But
Who doesn't?
I think having Spider save him is like, Spider the entire time wants to be a Na'vi, right? But he's a human. So he's learning to sort of embrace his human side and also where he comes from. In the beginning, he absolutely despises his father. And in the end, he ends up saving him, even though he saw everything that he did. So it's about building him in that, like, he does care in his own way. I mean, I feel like these characters feel very real in that he's someone in his mind who's protecting his squad, just like Jake is protecting his family, and everyone's protecting their own. I think what this film sort of shows is people protecting the people that are not their own. That you save them because that's what you need to do.
Can I also admit to you guys something? Do you remember if there was some sort of, I felt like it was kind of weird how Jake decides, like, oh, I have no plan. I just need to escape to like the water tribe, essentially. I was kind of like, but wait, won't the humans go after the forest tribe people?
Well,
No,
Declan, in a movie called Avatar: The Way of Water, they have to work in the way of water.
Right. Oh, right. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you. That explains it.
No, but to answer your question, I think, you know, what we saw with the new military installation on Pandora, it was very easily, I think, taken over by Quaritch once his squad arrived. And I think that the mission went from, and they mentioned this very early on, and I think this is going to come into play in the later sequels. The original mission of the new unit was to make Pandora safe for human colonization because the Earth is lost. They bring that up and they don't address it again for the rest of the movie, which is one of a few things that I have wrong with the treatment of this as a sequel and not as its own film like the first one was.
They're sequel baiting and then they're just not resolving things.
Exactly. But what I got from the sort of, I don't even want to say infiltration because that's not the right word, but the sort of taking over of the military operation by Quaritch's avatar or clone or whatever the word is that they use for them, is he is motivated not by finding a place for humanity to continue and survive. He's motivated by revenge on Jake Sully. So that becomes the mission. Once he arrives, it's all about finding Jake and his family. It's not about eliminating the Na'vi in the forest tribe as we saw in the first film. They already tried that. It didn't work.
I feel like that's what
it's all about Jake because Quaritch is in charge.
I feel like it's much more emotional and personal than the first one. The first one is about the Na'vi versus the humans, essentially, and Jake chooses his side. But in this one, it is a lot more about his family and defining what your family is. And I think they do a good job. I mean, they especially with the tort tunks,
Mm.
they call them
The big whale
the-
things.
big whale things.
Yeah.
Where they're all like, my soul brother, my soul sister, where they, even though they're completely different in color, everything, they're completely different species, they still view them as part of their family. And that's what even the fishermen said, that they're a very deeply emotional species. So I feel like this is, I mean, while the story is pretty simple, I feel like it's deeply emotional, and the characters have those deep emotions too, to the point that they're dealing with a lot of struggles that are realistic, as unrealistic and fantastical as this world is, which I think is what James Cameron does his best at.
We see a lot of that emotion with Loat, Jake and Neytiri's second son, who's kind of the main character of the second act.
A little bit.
There's different emotions, there's like jealousy, there's annoyance from being looked at as the one that messes everything up. There's loneliness from fear.
By the way, shout
another
out to
character
Monty
that
for bringing back old school bullying. Like, wow, guys, just like full 1980s style bullying. Great job, guys.
I thought it was a nice touch, which is like, we've seen the strife that the Na'vi have with the humans, but even among their own kind, you still have outcasts. I mean, you've got the outcast big whale thingy. And in their own way, Jake is an outcast.
Yeah. I never noticed the finger thing, not once, until they pointed it out, and it's like, oh my gosh, wait, oh my, like straight up. That was weird.
But one of the other characters that they deal with a lot of emotion, at least in the first and second acts, is Kiri. And we can spend all night talking about whether it was the right choice or not to bring back Sigourney Weaver and have a 12-year-old sound like she's 70.
No, a 70-year-old sound like she's 12.
No.
Wait, what?
A 12-year-old character sounded like she was 70 in her voice.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about Sigourney. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I got you.
It really wouldn't have bothered me if she wasn't in a pseudo relationship with like a 13-year-old boy or whatever.
Yeah. But like they talk a lot about her, wanting to know where she came from, because she is sort of inexplicably born of
immaculate conception.
Honestly,
basically, she's Grace's avatar's sort of spontaneous child.
Though also, why would they put the avatar in an incubator? Like, isn't she dead? I mean, like, not dead, but like, it's like
she was dead.
Right. So here's my theory.
She was surely not an alive person anymore.
Or at least within the great goddess,
So in Marvel, we have the Celestials, right? And they impregnate planets.
Stop.
But what happened if the planet impregnated her?
So you're saying my damn video keeps cutting out.
That was perfect.
So you're, oh my god.
Giggity.
Damn it.
Can you guys see me now?
This is the worst idea I've ever heard. God damn it. James
All right.
Cameron, how did they figure this out?
As ridiculous as that last couple of seconds was, if I haven't completely lost my train of thought, which I definitely have, you see Kiri sort of struggle emotionally with her almost lack of identity. She doesn't entirely fit in with the Sully family, even though she is their adopted daughter and sister. She's got this sort of relationship going on with Spider, who's her adoptive brother, but also not of her species. She's got the connection with the underwater life that we see throughout the second act. She can hear Awa's heartbeat, and she
Yeah.
has seizures underwater, but that was never addressed again, even when she was underwater.
Okay, I'm pretty sure we all know what that is. She's communing with Awa.
Hmm. No, the
Maybe,
science
I mean,
is like
I
But
just
like
feel like with that character,
I
there
mean,
is
all
so
these
much
things,
potential.
yeah, I
And
just feel like all these things are things that if you gave a good answer for in this film, we got seven or sorry, five more to go. Like, let's use the correct way to do it, George, because if you don't
okay,
do this,
but
you get to
Ben,
four and you're like, oh,
Ben,
it's out to Secrets of Grindelwald or whatever.
Ben, if the seventh film is 5.5 hours long, I'm not going to be on that episode of the pod.
All right, I'll do it
I'm going
myself.
to take
But at the fourth
myself
hour, James
out.
Cameron literally comes on screen and just starts talking to the audience for
I
like
will say,
3 minutes.
George, you don't seem to be one of the people. Like, I think this is, well, it's a sci-fi. This is a deeply like fantasy movie. I mean, I keep thinking of Lord of the Rings when I watch it. It's Lord of the Rings in space to a large degree. They have their own language, deep connection to nature, and yeah, invaders. I mean, it's not like a direct thing, but there are a lot of parallels you could probably draw. No rings in this one though. Um,
Ponytails.
You,
I mean, in those films, like the books are much more detailed, but in the like everybody who's a Lord of the Rings fan loves the extended versions, which you could go for like 30 minutes and they'd say like three words, and one of them would have to do with like food. And people love that.
I'm not
I
saying
think
you're
you're
a cooler
experiencing
person
the
if you
world.
watch the extended versions, but that is what I'm saying.
That is what you should do. But I feel like
Declan, never do
the
that again.
well, I did say this is an old school blockbuster. It is slower and more open, like a fantasy film, than something like Terminator or any of those aliens. It
The
takes its time
thing,
a lot more.
the
In
thing about
fact,
the runtime, and you just brought up the runtime, Ben, so I want to keep going on that thread. This, and this is not an original thought of mine. This is what a lot of people are saying about this movie, is that the story doesn't deserve the runtime. And I think what you can find in this is a really, really, dare I say, great 90-minute movie that is sort of put into a box with a lot of air in it that allows it to spread out over 3 hours and 12 minutes.
let's say
Like,
2 hours.
this is an
Like,
absurdly long movie for the
I
story that it tells.
yeah, I understand the criticism, but I do disagree with it in that I
It's the
feel like the
same movie as the
runtime.
first one, but a half an hour longer.
I disagree. I think in this film they spend a lot of time on, like, obviously they spend a lot of time on nature and the animals, but in this one, like, the connection is a lot more, and you get to actually meet the animals. I mean, Python. We have a name and a whole story for this giant whale.
mhm.
I feel like giving these characters and giving that depth to the people that live in here, I felt
Depth, water
more
pun.
oh my God. But I did feel emotionally like more connected with it after spending time with
It's
them.
a very
I would say,
emotional film. And I
Yeah.
think, you're absolutely right about that. But what I fail to see is anything more. And yes, the emotions are there. The third act, like the first film, is very cathartic when you're rooting for Jake Sully and his family to win out. What I fail to see, and maybe you can explain this to me,
Big whale.
is this is Jake Sully, this is, Miles Quaritch, this is the battle over, which one of them is going to win as humans try to invade Pandora. It's, learning about a, clan of Navi and their ways and their sort of culture. It's meeting new fantastic creatures. It's a big battle at the end. I I don't see how this movie does anything new
I
from
would
the
say
first film.
You
gotta
want me to
say, I gotta
describe your
say, I gotta
favorite
say.
films?
No, let Declan talk. Let Declan talk.
Thank you. I feel also that the film is kind of missing the central relationship that the first one had, in that the first one was built around Jake and Natiri's relationship with one another, and I feel like that's a really good like you could just very easily latch on to that and thus able to experience the world much better. In this second one, I feel like they it's like there isn't a single relationship or anything like that. There are multiple of them. But because there are multiple of them, it's like they're all so spread out, and it's not as easy to fully latch on to anyone. They're kind of trying to make the younger son, which is Natam's is Natam the older son or the younger
He's the
son?
older one. Loak is
Okay. Thank you, Toa. Yeah, it's like they're sort of trying to have him be it, but I kind of feel he doesn't fill the role as well as Jake Sully does in the first film. He doesn't like
100% agree.
He's too in he's too into the Navi to feel like a complete fish out of water, but also like I don't know. Again, it's like I wish.
No, I thought.
Declan, you said fish out of water.
I see what you're saying, but I think that's the whole point of this film. Like they say it in the trailer, it's one of the only things they say. They mention family, but this is like I said earlier. This is about defining what your family is. I mean, in the first movie, Jake he first thinks, "Oh, my family, or the troops, my squad." Then he meets Natiri, and he's like, this is my love. This is the only thing that matters to me now. But now he has children, and he has adoptive children. He realizes I need to protect them. And at the end of the film, I think he finally realizes that the whole world is his family, all the nature, all of the people. So we need to protect our family. That's why he needs to fight. And it's reinforced with, again, the giant whale. Like, those are their brothers and sisters. That's their family. And they've mentioned it a lot of times. And I don't think it's just about like fantastic, what is it? Fast and Furious. Like family meme. I mean,
family.
It does have like a meaning to it, which is it's defining what your family is. And you have Korac and his son, and they say that you're not, my father.
Yeah. Such a weird part, but
yeah, but I think it's valid, which is like, there's a lot of philosophical questions there. There's the ship Theseus. They brought that up in Marvel. It was pretty cool, but it's the same sort of thing.
It's funny that it happened.
I guess he would have to be the same.
It's funny that it happened after he crushed his skull, kind of like you almost think like that's like no, I am Korac.
You sort of get the idea that like he's not the same person, and I'm sure that James Cameron is writing his redemption because it makes the most sense. After all Jake did that was bad as a soldier, he sort of learned to appreciate the culture, and you can see that. He's doing it to sort of like blend in, but oh my god. But at the same time, like him bonding with Spider, that's like a father and son thing, but also he's bonding with the culture too. I feel like he does evolve as a character much more than the first film, where he's stuck in his ways, and now that he is actually not quite the same person, he's learning to adapt just like everyone else. But I feel like the people are the stories in this, and the world. Well, I do understand the story. Like, my criticism for plenty of films these days is the story is incredibly complicated. Blade Runner is my favorite film. It's a very relatively straightforward story. There's not a lot going on in it, but what it does have is characters. It has ideas. The people are the stories. And to me, a lot of the time that is much more poignant and a much better way to tell a story on screen, because a confusing, like, I could be shocked once, but I can feel multiple times, you know. So I do agree that there are some parts, I would say some of the writing could be a little bit better. And this is a sort of hit or miss, whether or not you are one of the people that would enjoy, you know, Lord of the Rings extended cut, getting to know the world and watching the world as a story, rather than a big blockbuster
We
story.
had that in the first movie.
But I think it
That's
does
where you
more.
get to know the world.
Yeah, but these are different characters. You're meeting different creatures. I mean, that's world building.
In some ways, I
The
wish
world
I
is
connected
stagnant.
with
That's
the
not building
characters
anything.
as well as Ben did here. I feel like that's the divide I'm feeling. I like the characters, but I didn't feel as invested in them as I wanted to. You know, I mean, it's like, again, no one's bad, but it's like, I don't know. I just, yeah, maybe it's because some of the character interactions was a bit too cliched. Like I said, the
Yeah,
80s
I would agree with that
to
criticism.
his
It is
younger
a
son,
little
and
cliche.
like the bit with the whale is like good. Like I feel like it's like, okay, that kind of
Yeah,
Well, there's something else
I'll give you that.
about the whales that I wanted to bring up, and that's the brain fluid
oh
that
yeah,
gives humans the ability not to age anymore,
just ends age.
which they
Pretty cool.
mention and then do nothing with. And this is the third time on this episode that I've Ben let me finish. Ben let me finish. The third time on this episode I've brought up something that they set up as if it's going to have a huge part of the third act, and they don't mention again. And when it happens once, I can understand how it's like setting up for a sequel or, you know, building towards something in the future of the story. But when it
I,
happens so many times in this movie, Ben, let me finish. When it happens so many times in the story, it gets a little like, okay, well, they said something that sounds really huge. Why do I care if it's not going to pay off in this one?
see, I think that's kind of not the problem with the movie though, which is that,
It's
like,
a problem with the movie. I'm not saying it's the
I
problem.
would disagree, and I'll
I,
tell
by
you
and
why.
large, enjoyed this movie. I'm just pointing out the flaws over the parts I liked.
But that's what I'm gonna say is, like, I think Marvel has trained people to, like, want something out of every little detail, whereas this is a very real thing, which is you missed, you're not saying the most important thing. Is they mention these creatures are
Were
probably
you about to say you
smarter.
missed the forest for the trees?
Well, no, no, no. I was gonna say these creatures are smarter, they are better, they are more emotional. In every way, they are better than humans. And the humans still will kill them
Mm,
and use them just so that they don't age. I
mm.
mean, I think it's a very basic thing, just showing how humans think, their lack of empathy towards other creatures, even creatures who are more emotional than them and stronger than them and who refuse to fight. You know, they're like the evolution that our species should take, essentially. Um, so I don't think, like, yeah, I'm sure they'll bring it up, but I mean, that's world building. Like, what does this turn into? But it doesn't need to go anywhere. It's to
Don't get
show
me wrong. I will be very glad if that or Kiri's seizures or something
Okay,
else that was set up.
is
I will be very
very
glad if
obviously a piece
those
of Christ.
are paid off in future films.
Yes,
But right now, in the immediate now, they feel dissatisfying.
Just
Can I say that?
given the level of focus placed on them, you know,
Exactly.
it's like
Exactly.
it's like if it was like the like I feel like it's such a good scene, like introducing like the brain fluid from the whales, and it's so ironic, like this massive beast that's superior in every way, and all that, and slaughtering them solely to get this incredibly small amount of liquid. I feel like that's like great, and like for right now.
They also bring up the waste.
Hmm.
Spiders like, wait, you just leave this?
Yeah, yeah.
Which also reinforces, I mean, the Na'vi are very much part of the nature, you know, they would use everything just like Native Americans. It's clear influence, but I think it also shows just the immense waste that the humans are willing to do, and that they destroyed their own planet, presumably. I mean, you can put a lot of these things together. I don't think they need to be told. Like,
I
can't
I
figure
feel
out
like
who is Jesus Christ by now. I don't know what to tell you.
the conclusion I feel could have taken at least some,
But
like something like even
that's the disagreement.
Like, just like someone picking up like the canister and like choosing to like let it go, or like bring it with the, I don't know. I feel
it shouldn't. No, I don't want that. That's fundamentally what I don't want. That's what Marvel does all the time, and it's fine. They are a franchise that spans, but James Cameron is trying to do something. It's called not a trilogy. I don't know what this is called, actually.
Film series. It's a film series.
But the arc goes over the movies. I mean, the first one, fair enough, but very clearly, this is where there is definitely a big arc that is happening. So you can't have a conclusion. If you have,
I'm saying I want it for like a character beat, like I feel like if it could just somehow worked into a conclusion for someone's character arc in the movie, like it could have enhanced the character. And I'm not talking about setting.
I'm gonna get back to Kiri for a moment and her seizure that she has in the second act.
Yeah.
There's a great moment in the third act where she's underwater, she's trying to help out, she's trying to escape. And it would be a great moment to heighten tension if she has this medical episode. And I was waiting for it. You know, everyone in my, gigantic IMAX theater was waiting for it.
And I say it well done to James Cameron, because I'm tired of stupid cliches like that.
It's not a cliche, it's a story beat.
It kind of is, yeah.
I mean,
story beat.
It's setup and payoff.
Yeah, but it's not set up for that. It's set up for her actual identity. I mean, she gets the seizure after she asks who her father is. It's clearly Jesus, God, Awa, planet, impregnated her mother.
Palpatine.
Somehow Grace Augustine returned.
I just think that these are two, I mean, unfair criticisms. Like, I understand it, but I would fundamentally criticize the movie for doing the things that you guys are suggesting, because you would hurt the rest of the story. I mean, why does the Star Wars trilogy suck? Because nobody knows where the characters are ending up.
You may want to specify which Star Wars trilogy you're talking about.
Oh, sorry, the last one, the newest one. I don't know.
A, disagree, and B, you really want to specify instead of just saying Star Wars trilogy.
The Star Wars trilogy. Sorry. Yeah, let's talk shit about the original trilogy,
no. Actually, I was gonna bring up Empire Strikes Back. See if you guys had an issue with the end of that film.
That's, you know what? Honestly, that is a fair thing to compare this to. But we can't separate the fact that right now we have
I think that's good, right? That you want to know what happens. I mean, you guys seem more annoyed than wanting to know what happens. But
what I'll say in response to your question, Ben, in your comparison to The Empire Strikes Back, is that there are very obvious moments in the third act of Empire that set up a sequel we know is coming, in the same way that there are very obvious moments in Avatar: The Way of Water that set up a sequel we know is coming. For example, Spider letting Quaritch live at the end of the film. That obviously plays a role in the future of this franchise. We all know that. We can all agree on that. What Way of Water does that Empire, at least in the dozens of times that I've seen it, has, none of, is those moments of, oh, here's some really big world building element, and then we're not going to say anything else about it.
May I remind you, there's a place called Cloud City
Uh-huh.
that was never mentioned again in the next movie.
But we see Lando.
Right. But what
We
about Cloud
understand what has happened.
What about Cloud City? What about Hoth?
I mean, what about the forest tribe? We never hear about them again.
Yeah, but I'm arguing on the side of this.
What I'm saying, Ben, is that Empire is a very deliberate
Look,
middle
I
part of a series.
I will
This
not
feels
compare
like
the
it.
quality, but
This feels all right. Here's the last thing I'm going to say about Avatar, the second film that is
Big blue
setting up
Bobby,
so
what do you
much.
think of mermaids live?
Because I do have one more question before we wrap up.
by the way, you know the first Star Wars was meant to be the end, right?
Yeah, it was going to be the only film. Star Wars.
Yeah.
It wasn't Episode 4. It wasn't A New Hope. It was Star Wars. I know.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
This film, Avatar: The Way of Water, while The Empire Strikes Back is the bridge of a trilogy, it was the second of 3 entries. This film was, first of all, comes over a decade after the original film, which isn't a knock against it. James Cameron was waiting for the technology of its time to improve.
They had to wait over 2 decades for to see Anakin Skywalker's rise.
All right, well, if you ask me, we didn't really need to see the prequels.
I mean, I think you kind of do.
But anyway, this film is it just tries to do too much for the world building that I feel we had a lot of that in the first film, and this doesn't feel so much as a sequel as a rehashing while also trying to expand the world. I just feel like in a movie with a very, as you say, simple story, it tries to do too much.
But
And
I
that,
disagree.
I mean, that
doesn't.
it works for you, it doesn't work for me. So my last question here, and I'll start with Ben. What was your favorite scene in this movie? We haven't done that question in a while.
My favorite scene.
Your favorite scene in Avatar: The Way of Water?
I think personally, when the big whale decides to attack, says "fuck these guys." It's a good scene.
Yeah, Declan?
I like.
Man, oh man. I this is a off the cuff answer rather than a fully sitting down and thinking about an answer. So this might change, but I do really like this. I honestly really like the opening montage at the beginning where it shows like Jake's life since the first film and sort of sort of where he's been. It's like, it's I felt like it was, very, I don't know, it was a great like reintroduction back to the characters and introduction to the new characters. Also, yeah, I felt, of course I choose the exposition scene, but nonetheless I felt like it was nice. It was nice. The scene where someone is literally monologuing exposition. God damn it. Anyway, yeah, but the opening montage I felt was a great reintroduction to Pandora.
Yeah, I'll admit that I was kind of pissed off that that's how they did the exposition. It was needed, obviously, after all this time. Um, you couldn't very well have a time jump. You could have had the movie pick up, a year after. That could have been what they did with the sequel, was just continue with the story that they had. And in a way that they do, but the time jump sort of necessitates the exposition. Anyway, I did like how they did that. I did like when the whale decided to attack. I thought that was a really badass moment. I was like, yeah, go
But
get him, whale.
disappointing, and that's why he's an outcast.
Oh wait,
because he chose to fight.
sorry, can I actually change my answer?
No,
Damn it. Okay.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just suddenly remember now the scene where Tim is when he first meets the whale and they haven't become friends yet, and he's like he's like swimming underwater and trying to get away, and like he's like hiding in like coral and like can't see the whale, and I feel like it's just a great like
Oh, and that other
of,
fish is going after him.
yes, yeah, exactly. It's just like a great sort of moment of like tension, and then beautiful scenery and all that. I thought that was a fantastic scene.
I wish in that moment I had stood up in the center of my IMAX theater and said in my best goddamn Liam Neeson impression, "There's always a bigger fish."
That would have been worth it.
Because that's literally the scene from The Phantom Menace, bailed out by a bigger fish.
It really is.
Look at me referencing the prequels. Yeah, my favorite scene is, well, you guys have mentioned some good ones. I think it's really a mix of scenes, and it's Quaritch sort of learning how to navigate his own new body.
Mm.
And I phrased that poorly, but like when he first is shown in the lab standing up for the first time, and then later on when they're up on the cliffs, as we saw with Jake and Neytiri in the first movie, trying to get on the pterodactyl looking motherfuckers. I don't know what they're called.
Space pterodactyl.
I thought, Stephen Lang doesn't exactly give the best performance. I liked him better in the first film, but I feel like most moments, huh?
He's only partially in it. It's just his voice,
right?
And
well, he did the mocap. He did the mocap for the Avatar.
It's pretty good, but yeah, I don't know how much you can really act with that.
Right. I thought that those moments were pretty nuanced. And it's almost showing a more human side.
Well, that's why I liked,
ironically enough, of Quaritch.
Well, yeah, that's why I liked it. I mean, in the first film, like Quaritch is just completely bad, but also you sort of get that he's sort of the same identity of Jake, which is like the soldiers are my family.
Yeah.
My squad is my family. And it's like an us versus them mentality. And here, like, I enjoyed when Spider is sort of, teaching him language, and he actually does it the hard way and wrestles the pterodactyl. But that sort of respect for nature that he didn't seem to have in the first film. Even though he's still an asshole, like burning villages. He doesn't actually kill the Na'vi where he probably would have in the first one.
Agreed.
You can actually see, despite like, I enjoy to see the change rather than someone tells me.
I hate that you brought up the idea of his redemption in future films, because now I can't stop thinking about it, and I think I actually want to see it.
Yeah,
it makes sense, and I think it makes sense to bring Quaritch back, especially having Spider there, having him as a son. They all fit as nice foils to each other. I mean, they're all outcasts in their own way, and they find their own family because of that.
Yeah.
So
I hope that after seeing the third one, I will love Avatar: The Way of Water way more. I still like it. I don't. I'm hating on it a lot. I don't mean to.
I understand.
I feel like
criticize it if they don't mention it in the later films, but I feel like it's tougher if it really works well in the next films, that this setup works. Like, I can't criticize it for that. So,
all right. So Avatar: The Way of Water, currently playing in movie theaters as it has been for the last few weeks.
Statistically, you've probably already seen it.
Yeah, I mean, feel free to go pad James Cameron's wallet and his ego a little bit more. There's going to be 5 more of these. Odds are we'll talk about a few of them in the next couple of years. But for right now, I'm throwing the hosting chair over to Ben next week because he won our last playing of Funky Film Reviews. So we're talking about his second favorite movie of all time. We'll let you know what that is at the start of next week's episode when Ben starts talking. So
Stay tuned.
Max is back next week. Have a good night.
Right.
Right.